Hey guys, today we're making a delicious apple rose tart. First step is the crust.
The crust is a simple pâté sucré, so it'll have some egg yolks in it to help stiffen it, and a little bit of almond meal because it's delicious. So the first step is to sift the dry ingredients. 3/4 of a cup of almond meal, 2 cups of all-purpose flour. So just sift that through. Also have 1/4 of a cup plus 2 tablespoons of sugar. And just give that a whisk to combine. 3 egg yolks and 1/4 cup of cream. Whisk that together and set aside. You can whiz this in a food processor, but I just like to use a grater, and I grate frozen butter in here. This is 1 cup or 2 sticks of frozen unsalted butter. Just be careful of your fingers. And then as you go along, just mix the butter in so it doesn't clump up. It's so beautiful. Think of this as like a traditional pie crust recipe, but the cream and egg yolks are replacing the ice water, and they do make the pie crust a bit stronger, more cookie-like. I almost forgot 1/4 teaspoon or like 2 pinches of salt. All right, now we're gonna add our yolk mixture in and stir until it's just combined. Like pie crust, this is gonna come together during the chilling, so it'll be a bit shaggy or rough in texture even when you've worked it over a bit. I try to use one hand for the wet stuff and one hand stays dry. It just makes things easier in the kitchen. So you can see it's getting really shaggy. We just have to work it together a bit more, and if it's really dry, you could add a little bit more cream in. It's not gonna kill you. So now it's really coming together, and it's almost ready to shape into a disc and chill. And you can chill this for 2 hours or even overnight if you just want to do it ahead of time. I could eat this right now, it's so good. This is on the plastic wrap. I'm just gonna flatten it into a disc with my crazy looking hands. It's fine, they're clean. And this will make a bunch of mini tarts, or you'll have more than enough for 1 large tart. I'm gonna use this pan, so I'm gonna flatten it out, roll it out after it's chilled, and then I'm gonna have some excess left over, which you can totally keep in the freezer for later. You'd be shocked by how many amazing things you can do with a little bit of extra pie crust. All right, my dough's all nice and chilled, and I'm gonna roll it out onto a lightly floured surface before pressing it into my tart shell. I'm using a 9-inch tart shell, so I only need to get a couple more inches. Don't be afraid to flour it up. And then I'm using a French rolling pin, which is nice because it really lets you work the dough and there's no harsh edge to put a crimp on things. Okay, and I'm just about done. I have a little bit of extra dough left over after this, which I'll be using for leaves, just for decorative garnish. All right, there's lots of ways to do this. It's not a race. You can go at your own pace. All right, that's off. And now just unroll it onto the tart shell. There we go. If you're wondering how to get that perfect cookie crust at the edge where there's no burning, here's the deal. You're gonna trim the edge about like 1 inch or 1/2 inch away, and then put it in the oven to bake. Then right when it's done, so you've done your blind baking, you're gonna trim it off with a knife. That's how you get a nice edge. Right now, as I'm giving it a final press, I'm just feeling with my thumbs to make sure the depth of the pie dough on the vertical edge is roughly the same all around. If there's any thin spot, I could just add a bit more. Thick spot, I could remove some. Poke the bottom with a fork just to release any steam. And then I'm gonna add a round of parchment paper that I've frilled the edges on with the scissors. I reuse these because you can get like maybe 5 uses out of them, and that saves time. Add some baking weights into the oven at about 425 for maybe 10 minutes. I'm not gonna lie, these tarts take a minute to make because of the rosettes. However, the technique is really simple. It just takes a minute because they're so big. So here we go. Some lemons. You're you're basically creating like a tart but sweet bath for the apples to be microwaved in. I used 3 lemons, and now I'm going to add in 1 stick of melted butter and 3/4 of a cup of sugar. This is what I'm going to use to microwave the apple slices in, and it's just going to let the apples absorb some tart, sweet apple pie flavors and become really pliable to make our rosettes. Now time to cut the apples. We're going to cut away from the core, so you kind of want to just have the meat of the apple and not too much of the core there. And nice crisp apple sounds, I love it. Your goal is to cut paper thin slices of apple. If you have an amazing mandolin, maybe try that out, but I've never gotten there. So this is straight out of the oven, and now is when you do your trimming. So just take a sharp knife and a glove, you don't want to get burnt, and you're going to trim away the excess. And you have to do it when it's right out of the oven because the tart shell is still soft and more pliable. 2 giant apples and all those paper thin slices are just chilling out in this bowl right now. I'm going to microwave it for 90 seconds, give it a stir, and probably a couple more 30-second intervals. Everything just has to be pliable enough for me to roll. If I need more apples, I can slice more and reuse the juice. The filling is so easy and really, really good. So we have 2/3 of a cup of sugar. We have 2 teaspoons of vanilla, 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, and then 1 stick or 8 tablespoons of melted butter, unsalted. Just give it a whisk, and it's gonna create kind of a slurry. All right, so now we're gonna fill our tart shell up with like a thin layer of the filling. Give it a wobble to move it all around. Apple slices are beautiful and pliable now. You want to find the thinnest possible petals or slices of apple for the interior of each rosette. You can use the ones that are slightly thicker as the rose becomes larger. This one could be a small rosette. All right, so when you place your first rosette inside of your tart, just pop it in, and then you're gonna have plenty of time to do this later, but you can zhuzh the petals a bit so that it's just as open as you want and it's really displayed to your satisfaction. Okay, so it's been a few minutes of work, and I'm just putting in the last rosette, and now it's ready to pop into the oven. Hope you enjoy, and don't forget to subscribe.